Hello and welcome to a Quamichan tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over PiskelApp, the pixel art creator that we use here for grade 8s and 9s. It's a free app and you can find it by going to your browser of choice and searching up Piskel and you'll find PiskelApp. You'll choose Create Sprite and be given a blank canvas. I love this app because of a few reasons. Number one, though, is that it's free. And so we don't get ads, is another reason, and it's nice and simple to learn. So let's learn some of the basic tooling. Over here on the side, we have all of our tools. We start off with a 32 by 32 canvas, which is perfect for our first project anyways. We have the pen tool. Okay, first, you'll notice if you mouse over any of these tools, you'll see additional options. These will become important if you especially want to speed things up with hotkeys and use its other functions. With the pen tool, we have 4 brushes. We have the single pixel brush. We have the 4 pixel brush, 8 pixel brush, and 12 pixel brush. Beside the pen tool, we have the vertical mirror pen tool. You can see here if you mouse over that you can hold down other buttons in order to flip it and use it horizontally as opposed to vertically, or do horizontal and vertical at the same time. This does require that your canvas is an even number set so when it's divided, it can calculate properly. But if you're wanting to make a symmetrical object or character, this is a fantastic tool as it allows you to quickly create something that will have symmetry and work right away. Next up is the paint bucket tool. This will fill an area with a particular color. You can come down here to find your colors. All the colors are here, and you can, of course, apply tints and shades of that color by adding white or black in various scaling. Let's just choose some random colors for now, such as like choose some red, green, blue, and pinky purple. All right, we've got a bunch of random colors. Now, the next tool is the color replacement tool, or the paint all pixels the same color tool. And it does exactly that. So if I wanted to replace all these blues and not just click in 2 different places, I could choose, let's say, a orange, and I want to replace the blue with that orange. I could use this tool and select 1 pixel variation of that, and it'll change the pixels of that color blue to that orange. The eraser is self-explanatory, but there is, of course, 4 sizes. I almost never use the eraser. I typically will only use the pen tool and never put a color in here. This allows me to then use the right click to act like an eraser and my left click to add the color. Stroke tool, I will often refer to it as the line tool. This will allow you to create lines from a chosen point and pulling to a new chosen point to create a line. The rectangular tool will allow you to create a rectangle like this or square. Circular tool allows you to create a circle or ellipses. The movement tool moves everything on the canvas, which is important. If you move the object off to the side of the canvas and then try to move it again, it's going to delete things. So if you have yet to learn how to use Command or Control Z to undo, it's going to be your friend in case you accidentally move something and have it not work the way you desired. I typically use the movement tool a lot for different things, particularly if I was going to like center my character or something like that, or move it up to animate a little bit. But I more often use it to clear my canvas. There are three selection tools. The shape selection tool is a weird one that I rarely use, but you can try and use it. Sometimes it might be a functional piece, such like if you want to grab this type of shape and you didn't want to try to select all, it's really helpful, I guess, in those situations. Generally, I will use the rectangular selection tool or the lasso to make my selections, as they will give me the most flexibility to grab shapes that are complex or just really quickly grab something. The lightening and darkening tool, if you hold down Control or Command, it will darken. Can be great if you're trying to create variations of color. I highly recommend that you use the Shift tool always. So Shift tool will step it once. If you don't use the Shift tool, it's just going to kind of be at random, and you'll see it kind of gets inconsistent coloring. And so if I wanted to create a variation of colors, getting lighter and lighter and lighter, I would hold down Shift and go one step at a time. I find that's way more effective. The dithering tool will go between the two different colors that you have here and create a checkerboard pattern. This is helpful if you are going to be using a limited palette, or if you're restricted to a limited palette and you want to create in between colors between different colors, as it'll create an in between visual, which is helpful. Lastly, we have the color picker. This will allow you to find a color. So here you can see our color palette is starting to get pretty busy. It may be hard to figure out a particular shade of red, and if you want to find it again, just click it and you can get it. Alternatively, if you are on the pen tool and you don't want to press that, just middle click the wheel on the mouse, and you will switch any color that you're selecting. And this is the one that I typically use. That saves me switching to the O tool to grab it. Over here, we have some transformation tools. We have the flip horizontal tool, flips vertically. You can also flip vertically if you hold down Option. You have rotate, which will rotate your things. We have clone, which will copy everything on that layer. And we have center, which will center your art piece. You can create your own custom palettes and organize them here. And you can also use layers, which can be helpful if you're wanting to have a layer that has some custom pixels that have an opacity for some reason. So if I wanted to create an opacity for this, I would then select the A and adjust this number. 1 means 100%, 0 is nothing. And so if you do like 0.5, that would be 50%. This would show up, and you can see, you now see it's a see-through at 50%. We're talking that there, and it combines layers. It just makes it distinct as you're working between the two, so you can see the effects. All right, I'm going to delete that. Those are your basic tools. Let's go over here. Under this area, you will find some your simple settings where you can change the background and layer opacity. The grid I often will use, as I will switch it to help centering my characters and stuff like that. I recommend using white as the color, but you can use any of these colors. You'll use this to resize your canvas. Remember, right now, maintain aspect ratios is on, and if you wanted a different size, like 320 by 180, you'll have to unclick this. Here is how you're going to save. You're going to title your work and then hit Save As. Here is how you're going to export your work. I recommend just focusing always on PNGs and to leave the scale alone. And then you can load your work over here. All right, let's now go over our first project. I'm going to load in an example character for you to see. Your first project will be to be creating a character. Your character will need to be having a couple different poses. Number one, we want it to have an idle pose. Number two, I'm going to change the frame for a second. I like to animate on 5 frames per second because in the game engine Godot, this is the default frame rate. You'll need an idle pose. Your character is standing still. It's not an idle animation with the character breathing or something like that. You could create that, but for basics, we need an idle pose. Then we'll have a jump pose and then a fall pose. You'll notice that the idle, jump, and fall are all unique frames. They are not the character just moved up into space or even rotated. They are unique images in their own. This is important. When I'm marking your stuff, you'll need to have them as unique images. Next, I'm going to be creating a move animation, and the move animation needs to be a minimum of 4 frames. Here, I've got 4 unique frames that create a move animation. My character does not have feet, but if they did, their feet would be on the bottom here of the canvas. One thing that I made sure is that I made sure that my character was center for where I wanted it, kind of splitting its pieces in half so that it will flip nicely in the game engine. Right? All characters, when you're designing characters in pixel art for games, need to be facing to the right. This is because in game design, when you start to code, positive numbers are usually associated with the character moving right. Well, negative numbers are with the character facing and moving left. Likewise, in the game engine, up is a negative number and down is a positive number. Okay, once you've created your character and you have your idle pose, fall pose, and jump pose, and move animation, you'll want to save and export it out. To save, you'll name it and hit save as.piskel. Once you've clicked save as.piskel and it's gone to your downloads folder, we can open that up. And there it is. Pull it over. It'll be found in your downloads folder. You should have your USB plugged in, and you should be able to see it over here. On a Mac computer, it will be over here, and you'll be able to see the USB name, such as A01. On a Windows computer, you'll also have something similar like this, except that this will be up in this direction. It'll be a downloads folder, and you'll see in your drives a USB drive. This saves an instance of your work. It does not create a saving path. So this is just an instance of your work, and you want to drag this instance onto your USB to save your stuff, as the computers you're working on will not keep your work on those computers. So you make sure you save them to your USB drives. All right, I'm gonna move that to the trash. I don't need it there. Next, once your character is finished, your next project will be to create an enemy. I will load up an enemy I've created. Your enemy also needs to be between 32 pixels and 64 pixels. You can go up to 64. And for your enemy needs to have a movement. So here's my enemy. He's got 4 unique frames to create his movement cycle, and that's it. We're just going to have the enemy when we bring it to game design, and it's just going to march back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so once you've created your player, you're going to then make your enemy. After you've designed and created your enemy, just like you had your player, we want to save it, right? You can also, though, I forgot to mention, export. So to export your character, you're going to go to this icon, PNG, and change the column number to 1 to create a strip. You'll have been noticing that I've been dragging in PNG strips to load this work. In the game engine, we're going to be taking that PNG character strip and using them. And so we want to export these as character strips. Once you have finished designing and making your enemy, you can move on to creating your tile set. So your tile set, in the end, is going to look something like this. All right, switch this to 32. All right, it's going to look like this. I'm going to lead you briefly through a process to create something like this. Your tile set does not have to have grass and dirt. It could be of any particular environment, just like your enemy doesn't have to be a little human character, nor does your player character need to be some floating eyeball. They can be whatever character creation that you would like to create, as long as it's school appropriate. They can also be of an existing IP that is intellectual property, such as Mario, Among Us characters, Pokemon, anything like that. Those are all great. Now, back to tile sets. We're going to be creating a tile set, and I'm going to show you how to make something very similar to this. Again, you can come up with your own design. To create this canvas, you'll make a new blank canvas, and you'll go to resize and change this to 1 to 8 and hit resize. Now I already have my grid at the appropriate sizing, but if you don't have the grid, you're going to go to the preference, go to the grid, click enable grid, leave this at 1, change this to 32, and choose a color. I recommend white. Once we have that here, we're going to want to go for a size 3 brush. We can keep it black and use the stroke tool or the line tool. You're going to pull some lines in the following pattern. What we're going to do is block out the tiles that we're going to create. All right, so far, by doing this, I've created my tiles. This 3x3 square will create most of our larger landmass tiles. This 1x3 vertical platform will create our vertical column platforms. This will make our horizontal platforms, and it'll be thinner. And then our single cube platforms. Now your character will collide with any of these black-like edges. To make that a little more visible and easier to see, we're going to make it and pretend that it's going to be grass. So I'm going to select a green color, go to the size 4 brush, and create some grass along the top, like so. Just blocking in where the grass is going to be. Don't go over the white line down here, as that will cut into that art space. Likewise, the black still represents areas that your character would collide with. So it would collide with this wall, or if it was jumping up and down, it would collide with the bottom edges of this. Likewise, it would walk along the top of green. The brown that I'm about to use here, filling in as the dirt, this represents the area that your character will not be able to get into. It's solid, it won't get past that. As you can see, we've got some of the basic tiles. What this will look like in the game engine, here's the game engine. So you'll be creating a game like this eventually if you do the game design project, and you can see the tile stuff already being in use in the game engine. Here we have a tile map, and you can see the tile map design that I showed you before down here. Here's the 3x3 square, the 1x3 vertical platform, horizontal platform, and single cube. I can then select these to build and make the world. All right, so if I wanted to make a vertical platform, I could select all 3 pieces, or I could stretch it by adding in a bunch of the middle ones and then add in a bottom, right? These will make the platforms that your character would move and walk around on. right? So this is how it's going to be used in the world. These pieces will help create it, and it'll make the platforms for your world. So getting there, you'll need to create details. How you create your details is up to you. You could do a quick Google search for uh, pixel art uh, platform tile set, and go to images, and you can find all sorts of different pixel art tile sets out there and examples of them to be inspired by. Once you have the inspiration that you need, you can begin building your own tile set and design it. Remember, your tile set can look like anything. I would say choose stuff that makes and looks appropriate for your character. Once you've created your tile set and it's finished, you will need to make the next thing, which is your item set. So, oops, wrong one. Here. To create your item sheet, you're going to do the same thing. Come here, load at 128 by 128 and hit resize, and you can maintain the grid. The reason why we want to keep the grid is because your character will fit inside of these squares, and we can then size our objects according to our character. I'm going to load in some objects I've already pre-created. There we go. So there is my objects, and I'd like you to create an object sheet like this. Notice that my tree is by itself and fills in this space, and I don't have the rock near it or anything like that in this space because it'll make selecting that object harder to do in the game engine. And so it's less messy and we get a nice clear space. So try to use your space according to the grid that is there, and it'll also help keep them to the appropriate size based off your character, since your character fits in one of these things. You can design the objects to be there. Things that you will need for this is you will need some sort of trap, and you'll need some sort of pickup item. I just realized this is missing a pixel. There we go. Anyways, next up, the last pixel art thing you'll be creating is going to be your background. This time, when you're resizing, you are going to click uncheck this and go 320 by 180. That'll create there. I will probably turn off the grid for now and show you an example. So here you go. This is the example background that I've designed. And you can create something like this. When designing a background, there's some things you want to consider. If we go to tile mode, this will help us make those considerations. Let's click enable. Here you'll see that the background could continue going left to right, and in fact my mountain range does. But it looks rather silly having multiple suns repeating. This, if we follow this and allow this to be used in the game engine, would create a lovely parallax background, but it'd look really silly with having multiple suns. If you're going to be creating a background that's going to do that, you're going to want to get rid of that sun. This way, that can repeat endlessly. Likewise, some people want to design their background so they can repeat endlessly in all cardinal directions. And you can do that, and you're encouraged to do so if you'd like to do that. Let's turn this off from animating and just see what that might look like if we were to design a background like so. So if we were to design a background that has and uses all those cardinal directions, maybe we're going to have something that relies on the circle, right? We can then have that circle repeat where needed with Control C, right? And move it over here with Control V, all right? And then move up here, Control V, and you'll see it's not repeating yet over there, but I can work towards having that way. Control V, Control V, Control V, and there you go. You can see that it's now repeating. I didn't really line up perfectly, but there you go. It's going to repeat in all the directions, and we would see that type of background. Very helpful and useful. Back to this. So your end project for pixel art will be a tile, will be a background, object set, tile set, enemy, and player. Once you have all those things, you'll be ready to do both parts of the game design tutorial. If you only want to create artwork and start the game design tutorial right away and just do only part one, you will need to have for sure your character completed and the tile set completed. Part two will cover the enemy, objects, and background. That is it for now. Thank you for watching this tutorial.